Before we get this review off the ground, I would like to thank Alyssa Swain for both her generosity and her patience. She not only paid for the Patreon reward of me doing this review on this specific episode, but she was willing to wait for far longer than she should have had to. And I would also like to apologize to the rest of my patrons for taking so long to get around to these specifically requested reviews. It has been taking a lot longer than I planned for it to take. For reference, Alyssa specifically wanted me to do an animated Atrocities episode on Things Change from the original Teen Titans series. This was the finale of the original Teen Titans, unless you want to count the movie Trouble in Tokyo, which I don't really. And I do want to reiterate, while my patrons choose what I review, it doesn't determine what I think of it. This is an animated Atrocity review specifically because I do not like this episode. Even though I watched Teen Titans as a kid a lot, I think I fell out of the show as it got into later seasons, as I was apt to do with many shows at the time. When shows started doing ongoing arcs and you were a kid in a family that couldn't afford DVDs and had no access to a DVR or even blank VHSs, if you missed an important episode in an ongoing arc and didn't manage to catch a rerun before the next episode, congratulations! You're lost in missing information. Coincidentally, this is why I was never into anime as a kid, because this kept happening. It was hard for me to watch that one new airing every single week. I tried to watch every single episode, but sooner or later, I'd miss one. I thought that One Piece was a show about pirates, but all of a sudden, they're on a cloud island with a bunch of characters that I have no idea who the hell they are. However, this episode is a little bit different. I actually did originally watch this episode when I was a kid. I distinctly remember that I did. However, I didn't dislike it at the time. That's because I didn't know that Things Change was the finale of the show, and I don't know how anyone else could gauge that fact unless they specifically looked into it. Let me explain what happens in the episode. The main plot is that Beast Boy finds Tara, someone who was essentially previously thought to be dead. However, she was a typical high school girl in this episode, who even had some friends. But she had no memories of her powers at all, or her relationship with Beast Boy, who goes a little bit far in attempting to trigger these memories. There's more to the story, but going even the slightest bit deeper, starts showcasing the problems, and this is an episode that cracks very easily. There's a subplot where the other Titans are trying to track down a monster that can change into any substance that it touches, and this is largely why I thought that this episode was just another episode of Teen Titans. How do you make sure that the audience knows that this is the final episode of the show? I don't know, regulate 4 of your 5 main characters to a background role. Their plot is essentially fighting this monster. That's all they do in the episode. This monster, who is never given a name by the way, has all of the hallmarks of a generic Teen Titans monster that they'd be fighting in your typical B episode, not a finale. Its powers are cool, I will give it that, but it's nothing more than your generic monster that wants destruction. We've seen it before. After Trigon, that's not going to be impressive to anyone. However, the biggest issue with this episode, the one that everyone has with it, is that it resolves absolutely nothing. So you bring back this character who is presumed to be dead, with absolutely no memory of her adventures or even her powers. There's a Slade robot somewhere in the middle of the episode, because why not? All of this seems to be an interesting mystery, and I'm sure that you'd like to know how it gets resolved. Well, Teen Titans fans are still waiting for the answer to this day. Let me put it this way. Imagine if the final episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender was Sozin's Comet, Part 1. Imagine if the other 3 parts just didn't exist, and Part 1 was how the series ended. Because by all accounts, by any way you paint it, this episode is a part 1. The other Teen Titans don't even end up defeating the monster that they're fighting. The series just ends with them going after this thing. There's no resolution. And after you follow these characters for 5 seasons, there's no way that this isn't going to leave a sour taste in people's mouths. Especially because, as I said, 4 of the 5 of them don't really get to do anything independent for the entire episode. I think the episode is trying to be thematic. There are a lot of slower scenes and cinematography that's reminiscent of the deeper episodes like How Long Is Forever. The title is called Things Change, and that's the theme that keeps getting drilled in. The episode starts with the Teen Titans finding their old favorite shopping center getting torn down, because time only moves in one direction. And Tara, well, she has changed. She doesn't remember anything. Hell, she doesn't even call herself Tara. We never actually find out what her new name is either, because the last thing that you want to do in a finale is answer questions that you've established. But with the Teen Titans fighting a very typical monster and a Slade robot, well, I guess some things change and some things don't, right? I can't overstate how much the B-plot of this episode annoys me. It's probably why the whole thing is so terrible. The episode is filled with these big questions that need some answers. Not just for the whole series, like what a finale is expected to answer, but questions that the episode itself raises. Instead of actually trying to answer any of those questions, we spend time with the other 4 Titans fighting a monster and distracting from the main plot. When another character is busy dealing with a heavy-duty mystery like Red X, the show made sure that the other Titans fighting the bad guy had something to do with the A-plot. Everything about fighting the shape-shifting creature is just a waste of screen time. I mean, the episode ends with Beast Boy abandoning his search for answers to go fight this creature. At least, that's what the ending implied, and it would have made sense if, it was a Robin plot and we hadn't already had several Robin plots just like this. It might have even given us some kind of closure if, Beast Boy rejoining the team and actually being the creature happened on screen, but not even that happened. So I can only really assume that the Teen Titans are still fighting this creature over a decade later. This time could have been better used by, questioning Terra's friends and their memories. They apparently know her and have known her for a while. Terra says that she has a home. I'm surprised Beast Boy never tried to check that out. People can't just appear out of the ether. They leave a trail of records whether they want to or not. It's a mystery where the Gumshoe ignored all the clues to act on raw emotions and never solved the case. And the book ends 3 chapters early. You could have at least told us where the Slade robot came from. This was his only appearance in all of Season 5. What the hell was this? Some kind of shoehorned in fan service shit? You couldn't have a Teen Titans finale without Slade in it, even if you had to shit the bed to put him in with no explanation. I mean, Slade's only purpose is to tell Beast Boy that he's kind of hurting Terra in her decision to live a normal life. At least, that's what I can gather. And yeah, Beast Boy was acting like a bit of an obsessive dick in this episode, which is all the more reason why it's confusing why he didn't track her down to where she lived. Towards the end, Terra says something that makes it seem like that she really is the real Terra. She says,
"The girl you want me to be is just a memory."
Here's a tip. If you do want to leave a mystery vague and open, the one thing that you absolutely should not do is present directly conflicting information. It just comes across as insulting and inconsistent. Through Terra's mannerisms and, her whole life and her circle of friends, it's fairly clear to the audience that this is not the original Terra, at least not without the episode being very inconsistent. If this was the true Terra who wanted to live a normal life, you'd think that she'd be a little bit more direct with Beast Boy. After all, that would probably mitigate Beast Boy's obsessiveness. A lot of people have theorized just what this whole thing was about. Some people thought that this Terra was just a figment of Beast Boy's imagination, like this was reminiscent of the Mask. After all, none of the other Titans saw Terra. However, other characters did see Terra, namely her school friends, so it's very unlikely that that's the answer. The only theories I want are ones about why anyone thought that this was a good episode to end on, even ignoring the fact that it came after the end. By all accounts, this is a part 1 of at least a 2-parter. Nothing is resolved. In fact, the opposite happens. New plot points are put into motion. It's not an ending, by definition. It doesn't even feel like a here we go again, or the adventure always continues. It feels like they tried to make a medium between the two at times, but it ended up just leaving things dissatisfying. If you want my theory about what this episode means, this episode was a ploy to get a 6th season. We'll write the most open-ended ending ever, and make a mystery with 0 answers, and we'll only be able to finish it off if you give us that final season, which backfired when they did not get that 6th season. I mean, it's just as valid as any of the other theories about this episode, because the door is just left that open. Pardon me if I'm old-fashioned, but I firmly believe that a job of a resolution is to resolve things. Alright, what's the next Patreon review? Madoka Magica. Huh, never heard of it. It looks like some cutesy magical girl thing. It actually seems like quite the pleasant experience.
一体どれだけの人の心を踏みにじってきたかなんて。白状なさい。こんな回りくどい手口を使って。デブ、逃げて。